So here's what people get wrong about the so-called inevitable doom of the European Union. On one hand, you have serious economists who say the project is built on political sand and destined to shatter at the first storm. On the other, you've got starry-eyed believers who insist the EU is unstoppable progress wrapped in a blue flag with golden stars. But the real story is way messier, way older, and honestly, way more interesting than any of that black and white doom scrolling. I promise, after we dig into the actual roots, recurring crises, and the atonal breakup rumor, you'll see just how much weight this collapse talk really has, or doesn't. So, how did a continent famous for centuries of brutal wars suddenly decide to shack up together? Let's roll back to 1945. Germany's literally smoldering, France is seething, and the rest of Europe is trying desperately not to implode a second time. Winston Churchill, not exactly Mr. Warm and Fuzzy, calls for a United States of Europe. Wild, right? Jump to 1951. 6 countries launched the European Coal and Steel Community, with the sort of logic only post-war leaders could muster. If the resources you use to make tanks are tangled together, it's basically impossible to secretly build one. Fast forward, by the 1990s, this experiment snowballs into the European Union, now a swaggering club of 27 countries, 500 million people, a single currency, and enough bureaucracy to make your head spin. Still, the cracks started showing early. Remember that disaster of a constitution in 2005? Voters in France and the Netherlands torpedoed it. The Eurozone crisis of 2010? Suddenly, Greece is a punchline, and Germany is everyone's accidental dad. Experts like Italian economist Luigi Zingal said, "No currency union has succeeded without political union," meaning the EU is an economic engine running without the right steering wheel. Fast forward to Brexit, the ultimate existential slap in the face. The UK, after years of huffing and grumbling about straight bananas or whatever, actually leaves. A real divorce. If you love seeing how tiny tweaks topple empires, tap subscribe so you never miss the next domino. Now, critics claim this is just the start. Italy was wobbling with its budgets, Hungary and Poland keep picking fights over laws, and some folks call the EU a dictatorship of Brussels. Big words. But hold on. Decades of doomsaying haven't broken it yet. If you check polls, most Europeans keep saying, actually we'd rather stay. Plus, even post-Brexit, nobody else has been brave or reckless enough to actually follow the UK out the door. There's a reason for that. While the EU has a migraine-inducing number of rules, it also means real cash, easy travel, and a world-sized bargaining chip against giants like the US and China. Even Viktor Orban, the Hungarian leader who loves poking Brussels, still cashes those sweet EU checks. Here's the kicker. Every time the EU nearly implodes, it weirdly finds a way to glue itself together even tighter. Greece almost defaulted? They invent bailout tools like the European Stability Mechanism out of thin air. Refugee crisis? Cue painful but real negotiations. Pandemic? The EU bankrolls a giant vaccine fund and, for the first time, takes on collective debt. Unthinkable just a decade ago. So let's do a quick checkpoint. So far we've got recurring crises, a parade of doubters, and every country's unique soap opera. But after 70+ years, the EU's still alive. Does that mean collapse is impossible? Not remotely. If you ever see France or Germany actually trying to quit, that's real collapse sirens. Otherwise, experts like Catherine Barnard from Cambridge say there are real tensions, but the incentive to stay together is massively strong. It comes down to this. Yes, the EU's got chronic bags under its eyes. It's messy, frustrating, and always riding out another scandal. Yet it's proved ridiculously good at avoiding the doomsday headlines people love to write. Maybe it falls apart someday, but history says that Europe, for all its drama, keeps awkwardly but stubbornly holding hands. Usually while arguing over dinner.